premisses on the assumption that consciousness and nature are two things. Very well, Lord of Lanka, you should reflect on the meaning of this. As you perceived from the vision of the realized one, this is indeed the vision of the realized. Now it occurred to Ravana, may I again meet the realized one, master of all methods, who refuses the disciplines of dogmatists, who manifests the range of first-hand attainment, who is detached from creations and creation, whose attainment of understanding is the attainment realized by yogis who master concentration methods when they practice. It is from his realization that the yogi's word, yoga, is adapted to imply attainment. So I want to see the compassionate one, who extinguishes imaginings fueled by psychological afflictions. I want to see him by his magical power, surrounded by successors of the victorious, penetrating the mental dispositions of all beings, everywhere, all-knowing, in whom all signs of ritual action have ceased. By seeing him, may I realize what I have not realized, and increase what I have realized, acting without vain imagination, enjoying attainment of blissful concentration leading to the stage of arrival at reality.
Then, at that juncture, the Blessed One, knowing the Lord of Lanka had attained acceptance of reality as not produced, again showed himself by means of his radiance, out of compassion for the 10-headed one, on the mountain studded with very many jewels and spread with a net of jewels. The 10-headed Lord of Lanka saw, once again, brilliance become visible on the mountain, the realized one, the able, the completely enlightened, his body adorned with the 32 signs of excellence. And he saw himself too, on each and every mountain, in front of the realized ones, the perfectly enlightened ones, alone. With Muhammadi, talking about the range of first-hand attainment of those who arrive at reality, surrounded by yakshas, relating a recital of that teaching, and those realms included their leaders.
Then the Blessed One again looked upon the assembly, mentally, not with the physical eye, stretched like a lion king, laughed a great laugh, and, emitting a ray of light from the circle of hair between his brows, and from his blessed sides, thighs, hips, and body, glowing like the fire ending in Eon, from every pore, a rainbow of fiery energy, blazing with a sphere of light like the rising sun, observed by the gods Indra, Brahma, and the guardians of the world in the sky, sat on the summit of the mountain, which resembled the peak of Mount Sumeru, and laughed a great laugh. Then it occurred to those groups of bodhisattvas, and the gods Indra and Brahma, and the rest, what is the cause, what is the reason, for the Blessed One, master of all truths, to smile and laugh a great laugh, and emanate a ray of light from his own body? Having radiated light, he became silent, his mind engrossed in absorption in the realm of his own first-hand ultimate knowledge, without being proud, contemplating Ravana's discipline, attainment, and conduct, having surveyed the region with a lion's gaze.
Then Muhammadi, the great bodhisattva, previously entreated by Ravana, out of compassion, having acknowledged the mental disposition and thought process of the groups of people living for enlightenment, and considered the society of the future, as people attached to recitation of doctrine, engrossed in literal meaning, obsessed with all the disciplines and powers of listeners, solitary illuminates, and religious leaders, would become confused in mind, even the Buddhas in a state of inactive cognition laugh a great laugh. Therefore, in order to allay their curiosity, he asked the Blessed One, what is the cause, what is the reason, for the appearance of a smile?
The Blessed One said, excellent, Muhammadi, and well done. Having observed the nature of the world, you have undertaken to question me to enlighten the past, present, and future minds of people fallen into false views. This is how savants of my kind should question for their own and others' sakes. Muhammadi, this Ravana, Lord of Lanka, also asked past Buddhas 2 questions. Now wishing to ask me too, he should consider the description of the state defined by the 2 questions, which has not been tasted by any listeners, self-enlightened ones, or dogmatic practitioners of yoga. This 10-headed one who wants to ask will also ask Buddhas of the future.
Knowing this, the Blessed One said to the Lord of Lanka, ask, Lord of Lanka, you have my permission. Don't hesitate, dominated by perplexity. Whatever you want, I will satisfy you with an explanation in answer to your question. As you are investigating the pleasure of the bliss of absorption in the characteristics of first-hand wisdom by means of searching intelligence expert in the countermeasures of the stages while in a state of mind in which vain imagination has ceased, surrounded by concentration Buddhas, constant in the bliss of cessation, having gone beyond the sets of concentrations of listeners and solitary illuminates, established in the stages immovable, good mind, and clouds of teaching, familiar with the selflessness of phenomena as is, you will obtain the state of anointment by the concentration Buddhas, on a giant jewel lotus throne.
You will see yourself sitting with similar lotuses, those lotuses supporting your body in various situations, which you will see directly facing one other. This is an inconceivable perception, which is produced by a single skill of production, set on the stage of practice. Having produced it by bringing forth mastery of skill in expedient means, you will attain that inconceivable sphere, and the stage of arrival at verity, capacity to change in many forms. You will attain what has never been seen by listeners, solitary illuminates, religious leaders, or the gods Brahma, Indra, Shiva, Vishnu, and so on.
Then the Lord of Lanka, with the permission of the Buddha, stood up, from that jewel peak, like a jewel lotus, immaculately radiant with light, surrounded by a group of celestial nymphs, with various kinds of flower garlands, offerings of incenses, perfumes, canopies, banners, flags, necklaces, diadems, and other choice ornaments never seen or heard of before, accompanied by exceptional musical performances. Beyond deities, Rakshasas, Gandharvas, Kinnaras, Maharagas, and humans, magically producing all the musical instruments in the realm of desire, and also producing whatever excellent musical instruments are seen in other Buddhalands, draping the Blessed One and the Bodhisattvas with nets of jewels, making a high canopy of assorted cloth, rising the height of 7 palm trees into the sky and raining clouds of great offerings and playing the musical instruments. He descended from the sky and sat on the jewel peak, which was adorned with great jewel lotuses, accompanied by the flashing light of the sun.
Having sat down, politely smiling, given permission by the Blessed One, he asked the Blessed One a pair of questions. I also questioned past Buddhas, and it was answered by them. I now ask the Blessed One too. This will certainly be recounted by the Buddhas and by you, in the course of instruction. This pair of truths was spoken by created projections, but not spoken by silent realized ones. The silent blessed ones who have arrived at verity produce the realm of bliss of concentration, but they do not construe it as an object, they show it. Very well then, let the Blessed One himself, Master of Truth, having arrived at verity, worthy, perfectly enlightened, teach the two truths. These heirs of the victorious and I are listening.
The Blessed One said, Tell me the two truths, Lord of Lanka. The Rakshasa Lord, splendid in crown, bracelets, pearl necklace, and ornaments fastened with a string of diamonds, said, Even realities are to be relinquished, how much the more unrealities. How then, Blessed One, are these two things to be relinquished? What are unrealities and realities? How is there duality in things relinquished that are limited to the imaginary, whose imagined nature is non-existent, whose substance is immaterial, which are undifferentiated from lack of perfect knowledge of the receptacle consciousness, which are established on an illusory nature, in the domain of unclarified knowledge of perishability? How could there be any relinquishment of them being like this? The Blessed One said, Is it not apparent, Lord of Lanka, that the particularization of inherently breakable and perishable things like a jar is in terms of the ranges of imagination of the unenlightened?
Why is this not apprehended the same way? There is a distinction between reality and unreality in terms of particular imaginings of the unenlightened, but not in terms of perception based on attainment of ultimate knowledge. Existences such as jars, confined to various characteristics, may be there for the unenlightened, Lord of Lanka, but not for the realized. Flames of the same nature lit by a single torch appear different on houses, mansions, parks, and palaces, with differences in length and size of the flames due to the potency of the fuels. Why is this not apprehended the same way? There is a distinction between reality and unreality. Not only does the flame of fire, which is but one continuity, appear differentiated, even in the offspring of a single seed are distinctions of stalk, blade, joint, knot, leaf, petal, blossom, fruit or vegetable.
Such are the expressible differences of all things in the triple world, the phenomena that produce everything, external and internal, appearing from unknowing, belonging to the constituents, elements, and senses, places of evident pleasure. Distinctions of inferior, superior, and middling are apparent in what are uniformly consciousness, resulting from grasping sense objects in terms of purity and impurity, goodness and badness. Not only is there particularized distinction of those things, Lord of Lanka, even in the yogis practicing yoga distinction is seen in the characteristics of individual attainment on the path of yoga. How then could there not be distinction between reality and unreality as a result of comparative thinking? There is indeed.
There is, Lord of Lanka, a distinction between reality and unreality in terms of conceptual definition. Then what are realities? It means these things conceived by the imaginative thinking of dogmatists, listeners, individual illuminates, and the unenlightened as being for a reason, associated with elemental substance. They are to be relinquished, not to be imagined to be as they appear. When focusing on their nature as percepts of the subjective mind, things such as jars conceived by the naive do not really exist, having no accessible solid bodies. They are relinquished by seeing them objectively with this particular insight.
Then what are unrealities? Things inherently not found, where descriptive conceptions do not apply, which are groundless. Their nullity is evident, because of the non-existence of their being, thus relinquishment of their reality comes about. And what are things that are inherently not found? Things such as the horns of rabbits, mules, camels, and horses, or the son of a barren woman. Because they are inherently not there, they should not be thought to be as described. They are elsewhere called conventional meanings, not from attachment as in the case of jars and the like. As they are to be relinquished since they are not apprehended by consciousness, so too are any imaginary things to be relinquished. Hence the relinquishment of realities and unrealities comes about. This is the answer to your question, Lord of Lanka, as to how realities and unrealities are to be relinquished.
You also said you had asked past Buddhas, and it was divulged by them before too. This is a statement of an imagination. The past too is imagined to be the past in this way, and so too the future and present by nature. Those who arrive at verity have no vain imagination, they are beyond all notions and nonsense. The nature of form is not as imagined, except insofar as it is recognized for the sake of the happiness of the unknowing, by the insight of one who walks on the groundless. Hence knowledge is the self of those who arrive at verity, they are embodiments of knowledge. They do not imagine, and they are unimaginable.
In what way do they not imagine? By thought in terms of soul, life, or person. In what way do they not imagine particulars? By cognitive consciousness based on sense objects, in terms of form, sign, shape, or appearance. So thought should become free of false imagination. Furthermore, Lord of Lanka, the activity of beings is like figures painted on a wall, everything in the world is inert, Lord of Lanka, not performing any action, because of the unreality of all things. And no one is listening or hearing either. For the whole world, Lord of Lanka, is a projected semblance. But dogmatic ignorant yogis do not realize. Whoever sees thus, Lord of Lanka, sees truly. Those seeing otherwise are acting on imagination, which their own split imaginings grasp, echoes, like a reflection of one's own image in a mirror, or like reflections of one's own limbs in water, or shadows of one's own limbs in the moonlight, or in a house. So, having grasped the grasping of their own imagination as objective, they conceptually objectify reality and unreality. They do not act in accord with
relinquishment of both reality and unreality. They make suppositions and enlarge upon them, they do not attain tranquility, meaning total absorption, the entry into the realm of spontaneous first-hand ultimate knowledge from which the realized issue, where paramount absorption occurs.